Hayward nodded, glancing away from the screen and looking directly at Remy. "You look as if you could use a drink, and I know I do." He put a heavy hand on Remy's shoulder and turned him away from the monitor toward a door on the far side of the room. "I will explain, but only after a drink." Hayward's private office looked nothing like his lab. Oak shelves filled with leather books covered 2 walls. Expensive paintings under spotlights dominated the other 2. A large desk filled one corner, but Hayward directed Remy to the overstuffed couch and then asked him for his choice. "Nothing till I get a few answers." Hayward nodded and punched a small button. A panel and picture slid back, and a well-stocked bar slid forward. In silence, he poured himself a scotch and took a good portion of it straight away. Then he refilled his glass and turned to Remy. "You almost destroyed my plan tonight, son." "I was thinking I was helping me." Hayward laughed, then dropped down into a large chair that faced the couch. He took another sip of his scotch and then sighed. "Remy, you remember the last night Cornelia and I saw you?" "Airport." Hayward nodded. "We were returning from the best specialist in the country. Cornelia had only 2 months to live at that point." "What?" Remy almost stood, but instead moved to the edge of the couch. "Nothing anyone could do. Hereditary illness, the same that killed her mother. I had always feared it would take my daughter too, and it did." Remy didn't know what to say, so he said nothing as Hayward again sipped his scotch. "I spent most of Cornelia's life working on a way to save her. When you last saw us, I had determined that I had failed. There was no cure, so I went the next step. I figured out a way to bring her back after she was dead." "The elixir of life?" Remy asked. For generations, both the Thieves' Guild and the Assassins' Guild had fought over the elixir of life. It was the very reason Remy had been banned from his hometown. Hayward laughed, dismissing Remy's question with a wave of his hand. "Not hardly. You and your family made sure that wasn't possible. Besides, there was too much baggage with that elixir." "Then how?" Hayward laughed, but this time his laugh sounded hollow and strained, as if directed at his own personal demon. "I mixed science with black magic," he said. "Simple, actually." "Voodoo?" Remy asked, his stomach sinking at the thought of zombies. "Not really," Hayward said. "I just studied the principles behind the voodoo and the zombie legends and applied science to them. By the time Cornelia died, I had the answer. I brought her back." Remy nodded. So the girl he'd picked up in the street had actually been dead, but somehow reanimated with life. Science or black magic, she was still a zombie, one of the walking dead. Hayward downed the last of his scotch and stood, moving over to the bar to make himself another. With his back to Remy, he continued talking. "I can tell you don't understand. I loved my daughter more than anything. The thought of her dying was impossible for me to even consider." "She's still dead, Remy said. "Only technically," Hayward said, spinning around to face the X-Man. Remy held the intense, blazing gaze of Hayward for a moment. The man was obsessed with this topic. That much was very clear. There seemed no point in arguing it. Inside, Hayward knew his daughter was dead, and that knowledge was eating at him like maggots in a coffin. And Remy knew that the children, once zombies, were monsters. They might look like the children they used to be, but they were just dead flesh walking, nothing more. Remy stood and stepped through the door through which they had entered. "So why slit her throat and put her out, bait for the other children? What went wrong?" "My formula was stolen," Hayward said. His shoulders sagged and he moved over and sat down heavily in his chair. "It was meant only for Cornelia, no one else." "Who stole it?" "A lab tech," Hayward said, almost laughing. "A nobody who is now dead and will remain that way." "But those children out there, the walking dead." Hayward